Hey, hi everyone. Welcome to your show, E-Coffee with Experts. This is Ranmay here. And today we have Julio Taylor, who is the CEO at Hallam with us. Welcome, Julio, to our show.
Thanks for having me.
Great. Before we move any forward and pick your brains, Julio, why don't you talk us through about your journey thus far and what Hallam is all about, how you guys different from all the agencies out there, and we'll take it forward from there.
I'm quite old for a marketer, so the story is very long. So I'll give you the short version. So I'm quite fortunate that I've been working in digital pretty much since the beginning of the internet. So I started creating online in the 90s. So myself and a couple of friends started to mess around with GeoCities and with building websites, and we thought this is cool. We never in a million years thought that someone would pay me to do that. At the time, it was just a hobby. Over time, I just learned how to design, how to build stuff, experimented with stuff. And really, since 1998-ish, when I went to college, I've been involved in digital in some way. So I studied computer science. I learned how to code. I learned how to design properly. And I started building websites. And I worked more or less as a freelancer or employed until about 2007, when I decided to start a new agency, a new business with a friend of mine. And since then, we've grown and become what we are now, which is an international agency of 70 people with clients all over the world. But I feel, like I said at the beginning, I feel very fortunate because I've seen the rise of the internet as a viable place in which to make a business from the very beginning. So that's taught me a lot along the way, I think.
Great. You mentioned about your background in computer science. How has it helped, and your early web development experience has shaped your approach to digital marketing and brand building today, or let's say building this brand, Hallam?
I think computer science, for me, in hindsight, it probably wasn't the right degree because I'm not that great at science. I'm more a creative. So I should have really gone to design school, probably. However, what I will say is computer science is a really great degree because it teaches you the first principles of computing, right? So you understand why things work, not just how they work. So you learn about the concepts, you learn about big principles and big things that actually remain true forever, right? So for example, we learn how to build databases using ancient software like Visual Fox Pro, which was by the time I used it in the 90s, it was already obsolete. However, the principles of relational database design are still true today. We learn SQL, we learn Visual Basic and stuff like that. All that stuff served me well because later I learned HTML, CSS, PHP, and all that stuff. And it's great, but sorry, my computer's making noise. So yeah, I think studying something that teaches you first principles, it's the same thing with if you go to design school and you learn design, you're going to learn the fundamentals of design, and that will go. Those fundamentals are true for a cup of coffee as much as they are for a website. They are the fundamentals of human interaction, which I think are the vital things, the most important things.
Absolutely. And can you throw some light on some specific technical skills or lessons you would have learned from your GeoCities days that still influence, let's say, your decision making as a CEO at Hallam, or in the digital marketing space at large, for that matter?
I think and this is something that, like I said, I'm like a granddad of digital, but one of the things about having done things back then is you got opportunities to do stuff that young people now wouldn't be able to get. The internet was a wild place, so you could build anything. And we're talking about the days when I could build a website with basically no skill, publish it, and it would be only slightly worse than Disney's website or whatever. Like, there were old websites were terrible. So you got to experiment and learn and self-teach yourself a lot of stuff. But I think what's happened is you learn to have a mindset of just trying stuff, right? And experimenting and seeing what happens if you do this or you do that. And I think what happens then is you fail so many times that you learn every time you get something wrong. So you end up with this kind of constant learning journey that I think now everything is so structured. Like right now, if you want to learn web now, go on Coursera or you go whatever, and there's a
Yeah.
regimented, structured way of learning that's how you learn, and it takes 6 months. When we started, if you're going to learn something, you just go and do it. No one's going to teach you how to do it. You just have to do it. There's no
Yeah.
books. There's no courses. It's just do it. So I think that teaches you a couple of things. One of them is like an entrepreneurial mindset, building stuff. And then the second thing is you fail so many times that you have no option but to learn because you just fail. And I think that's pretty precious stuff. And I think people are doing that again now with, NFTs, Web3, things where there is nothing to learn because no one's figure it out yet. So the only way to learn is to try it. And yeah, sometimes it doesn't work. That always happens with new stuff.
Yeah. Absolutely. You're mentioning about failure and learning is probably actually the cornerstone of any fundamentally strong outline that you want to make or of a particular domain, or let's say, like it all started with digital marketing. There is nothing to learn apart from the fact that you got to try it out. The internet was there and you got to try it out. And but yeah, with these days, the other day I was actually going through one of something on internet again. Now there was this gentleman trying to teach how to make $1 billion digital marketing company or an agency. And I did some research, realized that he himself did not own an agency ever. So there is so much of content on the internet space these days when you got to figure out that what you're following, what you're not. And end of the day, it still does no harm in terms of trying a few things out on your own versus just relying on the content that is there.
Yeah, definitely. That's the other thing is there's so many experts now,
Yeah.
so many of which are not experts at all. And I think that's the reason why building a brand is so important, becoming an agency that can prove that what they're talking about is real. I think that's super, super important because you have a lot of people and even people that are well respected in our industry that are well known, and you see them on social. I'm not going to name any names, but you see them on social, you see them on TikTok and YouTube, and they're saying all this stuff. And you actually look at what they've done, and they haven't really done a lot. And you think, what's going on? What's going on here? And they say very obvious things, but there's a lot of conviction. And I think that's
Mm.
true to any industry. It's true of any industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And talking about you have been there and for so long now, what are major challenges, or let's say what major shift in the digital marketing landscape that has evolved over last couple of decades, like anything? What do you think are those major shifts in the industry which has taken place during your tenure?
I'll tell you something. I'll answer the question properly in a second, but I'll tell you something that I can tell you for sure is there are certain things that have never changed. And
Hmm.
at every stage of technological development in marketing, there have been these so-called revolutions, right? So
Hmm.
when websites first came out and no one's ever gonna use the internet for anything useful. Okay, we learned that wasn't true. And then it's no one's ever gonna get the credit card out and buy something. That's ridiculous. And
Yeah.
then prove that wasn't true. And then people saying no one's ever gonna use the internet on a phone. Are you crazy? On a phone? Who's gonna We'll prove that wasn't true. Social media, same again, and so on. But what hasn't changed along all those different major points of hype, and we're having the exact same thing now with AI, right?
Correct.
The thing that's never changed is that if you take any marketing activity, any marketing piece, whether it's a website, a social, and add anything at all, and you pull that thread far enough, you keep pulling that thread, at the end of that thread, there is a human being holding a device trying to do something, right?
True.
So therefore, the fundamentals of psychology and human interaction and those fundamentals, which are actually based on first principles of science, right?
Hmm.
They've never changed, and they're never gonna change. So actually, the
Yeah.
marketers who understand that stuff, who actually think about that, understand brands, they understand strategy, they understand neuroscience, they understand user experience, they're the ones that succeed. And the ones that talk about tools and they talk about hacks and they're the ones that disappear and become irrelevant.
Mhm.
And that's exactly what's going to happen now with AI. You see all these AI influencers / grifters online that are constantly going on about how Google is finished and SEO is finished and websites are dead because I've got this and
Yeah.
I've it's not the case. It's simply not the case because ultimately that person who can build an AI powered system that is more human than another one will win the race. And therefore,
Very true.
it always comes down to the human ability to connect with other humans. Always. It doesn't matter what the tool is, it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I think that's the thing. So like these, you learn these things. There's these technological shifts that they've happened every 5 to 10 years. There's a major shift. I remember about 10 years ago when there was the mobile, when iPhone was released, and then there was the following year or the year after, Google introduced the update, the responsive design update. Everybody went crazy about responsive design, and there was arguments. I remember arguing with clients when they were like, clients were saying to me, no one is ever going to buy my product on a mobile phone. It's not going to happen. So I don't want a website that's responsive. I'm not paying for that. And now 10 years later, those companies either don't exist or they have a responsive website. But
You're right.
there's no other outcome to that. So ultimately what I'm saying is there's a constant, and that constant is the ability to connect with humans. And if you understand how to do that, you will always succeed in marketing, whether it's AI, whether it's, doesn't matter what it is, it's irrelevant. Doesn't matter. I really believe that.
Yeah. And then, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned about AI and automation as played its part. How do you see the role of human creativity evolving in the industry? And how, as a company, you strike the balance between automation and human touch?
I think AI will make admin faster. I can now use I use it all the time. Every single day I use it. And I was writing a job description, and I said, write a job description with these things for this type of role. And I just did it. And then I took it and I edited it a bit, and it was good enough. That saved me like
Right.
30 minutes. But I still had to think of the job, think of the things I wanted in there, direct the AI, right? And the same applies
Yeah.
to if you're using it for content writing or for image generation. And I was recording another podcast recently, and we were talking about this exact topic, right? We were saying if you give me a great, really good camera, and you
Hmm.
put me in a busy street of New York, and you ask me to take a beautiful shot, a portrait shot of a person that could win an award with a great camera, I
Uh-huh.
would probably do a very average job. If you give the same camera to a professional photographer in the same street with the same subjects and the same lighting and the same camera, the professional photographer do a great job, really great job, and will create an amazing picture. Because the difference with the same skills, we have the same tools. The difference is
Hmm.
skill, his ability, the photographer's ability to see the image.
Yeah.
And with AI, it's going to be similar. Like we all have the same tools. We can all access GPT. We can type the same things, but it's our ability to discern and to be able to figure out what's good and what's bad, and to have the
Hmm.
vision to instruct it to do something great. That's
Hmm.
the difference, I think. That's the difference. It's the same with instruments, musical instruments. Guitars, this guitar that's
Yeah.
behind. Guitar is expensive. It's a really expensive guitar. You put
Yeah.
that in my hands, or you put it in the hands of a fantastic guitar player, it's a completely different outcome. Why are we
Right.
talking about the guitar? It's not the guitar, it's the guitar player that makes a difference. And I think with AI, it's a very similar conversation. People are talking about AI as if it's going to replace the thing that already makes us successful, which is the ability to
Mhm.
use tools to create a better outcome. And I just don't
Yeah.
share. What I do share the view is there's a lot of tasks that are currently low
Mhm.
value tasks that are not unique, that are repeatable. They will
Mhm.
be replaced. I'm sure they will. Of course they will. Makes sense. But that's not the same as replacing a strategist or a creative or scientist or something like that.
Mhm.
It just won't be the case.
Yeah, I also give this example to my team, quite related to the one which you mentioned, is that of a PlayStation or an Xbox. Let's say if you are playing FIFA, you will still have the Ronaldo or the Messi on your team, but an expert player of using the abilities of that particular player would be different to versus what a normal person would do with the same remote in their hands. It's
Yeah,
not about the player on the screen; it's about the person who is handling the remotes because
I
the
agree.
creativity is there.
Yeah.
So what they do with that is very important versus having exactly the same set of teams at their disposal.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And that's the thing. I think it's, don't get me wrong, I think it's a very valid argument that there are entire sections of the industries that are at risk. I know they are. And including in marketing, I think there are people, we were talking about link building earlier. It's so obvious that's one of the first things that would become automated when you're talking about sending emails and responding.
Outreaches. Yeah.
Yeah, it's likely to become automated, but then therefore what will happen is that won't be valuable anymore. So then we have to find something else valuable that
True.
requires humans to be involved. That's one of the reasons why I believe Google is putting less and less importance on the quantity of links and more importance on the quality,
True.
because they understand that it's something that can be automated and therefore it's losing its relevance, right? In terms of the great big mix of marketing that needs to happen.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And in terms of content as well, while ChatGPT and the other ones out there can give you a whole lot of content, it gives you a head starter for sure. If you have, let's say, a report or something to submit, let's say at 4 p.m., you got reminded about it at 2:30, you need a head start, you need 10 facts to be there. You just type it on the platform, it gives you information, you cross-verify it and just submit it and stuff like that. But let's say if you're doing content for a website, which end of the day has to be consumed by a human to make that decision about either buying or not buying the product or the
Yeah.
service, then
Yes.
obviously you have to have that storytelling and that emotional question trigger that decision making element in your consumer's mind. Because while AI is there, the purchase is happening in the mind and the heart of a real human. So that
Exactly.
can never be substituted by any platform. That's what we preach internally with our content folks. So it's
Yeah.
just that whosoever uses the platform and becomes more tech savvy versus what they were earlier, at least the way we look at it at this moment, are like they're gonna end up at more high paying jobs than what they are today versus the thought of their job being at risk. So it depends on how you accept technology because it's there to stay for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that.
Great, yeah, Julio. And finally, as a leader in the industry, what advice would you give to aspiring digital marketers and entrepreneurs looking to make their mark in the competitive world of digital marketing and advertising, which is evolving, if not day or week, but at least on a monthly basis?
There's two answers to that, and they are contradictory, but hear me out. So I think the first thing is you need to make a decision as to whether you need to specialize, and you need to you need to focus either on extreme human skills, consultative, strategic, creative skills that really are in tune with human ability, or you need to
Hmm.
become a technical expert or a data science or something that is at the extreme end, so that can't really be completely replaced by automation. If you sit in the middle where you can do a little bit of everything, and then I think you are at risk, especially if you're doing jobs that are not in one of the two extremes of either human ability or very deep technical ability. I think if you sit somewhere in between, you're going to be in a problem. So I think becoming an expert at either of those things is something that is very valuable from a human standpoint. The second piece of advice, I think, which kind of contradicts the first one, but doesn't really, is the industry needs really skilled generalists who know how the whole thing works, how the whole thing
Yeah.
together. And that's not the same thing as being a little bit of everything. It means being able to sit above it and being able to see the entire landscape and be able to design or to create strategies and be able to understand how the whole thing works. That includes AI, it includes creative, it includes data, all these different parts, right? And I think that's a skill that's been lost because marketers have become SEOs, they've become paid media people, they've become developers or whatever. But we don't have that many people that are, like, I would say, like elite generalists who know at a high level how everything works. And that's what we're there in that level. We're thinking about critical thinking skills, and we're thinking about strategic thinking abilities and those things that are very incredibly difficult to replace by a machine. And we know that machines are not capable right now of critical thought. They're able
Right.
of they're capable of simulating critical thought, but they can't do it. So I saw yesterday, I watched a video. There was a guy that asked GPT and said, if I have 3 towels that take 3 hours to dry when you hang them, how long would it take me to dry nine towels? And GPT said, 9 towels will take 3 times more than 3 towels. So therefore, drying 9 towels will take 9 hours. And obviously that's not true, right? Because
Yeah,
if you have provided that the line is long enough, actually 9 towels will take exactly the same amount of time as 3 towels.
exactly.
That's critical thinking, right? That's critical
Mm.
thinking. The machine cannot do critical thinking. What it can do is it can do a simulation of what sounds like reality. So therefore, if your skill set and your job is critical thinking, then you will succeed, because there's always going to be a gap. There's always going to be a space for people who know how to think, because they're either
Right,
going to be doing stuff the machines can't do, or they'll be teaching the machines, or they'll be building the machines. But if you're
right,
good at optimizing something that has a predefined outcome, you're likely not going to have a job in the next 10
right,
years. So that's my advice. I think either become a critical thinking elite generalist, or become a specialist in something, like become an incredible designer, a creative, or become an incredible data scientist. Somebody who understands philosophy or statistics or something very deep. Don't become somebody who is who can just do something that can be predictable, because that's unlikely to survive, I think.
Lovely, lovely, Julio. Thank you. Thank you so much for those insights. But yeah, before we let you go, I would like to play a quick rapid fire with you. I hope you're
Okay,
game for it.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Great. Your last Google search.
I was searching for the location of a hairdresser nearby, which I never
All
went
right.
to, close, as you can see.
All right. And let's say if we were to make a movie on you, what genre would it be?
Think it would be a biography about struggle and
Mhm.
hard work. Yeah,
That's nice. All right. Your favorite sport?
football, soccer.
Oh, wonderful. Soccer. You would have related to that Ronaldo and Messi example for that matter then.
Yeah.
Lovely. Okay, well, not really a repurposal. The last question. What did you do with your first paycheck?
My first paycheck from digital marketing, I bought a guitar amplifier,
Now,
which
okay.
is
Is
which
that
I have till this day.
any one of these that we have in your background or?
No, it's in storage. It's a big Marshall guitar amplifier.
Okay.
First thing I bought with my first paycheck from digital from building a website.
Oh, okay. Okay. You said amplify. All right. Perfect. Good, yeah, Julio. It was lovely hosting you, and I'm sure our audiences would have benefited a lot out of the insights which you shared. And really, yeah, thank you so much for taking your time and
Thank
doing
you for
this with
having
us.
me. Thank you for having me.
Cheers, man.